Hi guys, I think members of Reform UK are either delusional or perhaps they just don't understand politics very well. So a guy called Andrew Southhall, who was a candidate for the general election in 2024, stood for reform against a guy called Marco Lunghi, a former Conservative MP. The latter defected to the Farage outfit a few days ago, and Andrew is not too happy about it. First, he says here that he was not consultant, and second, that he's fearful that people who were both critical of Reform UK in the past and supported policies under the Tories will both weaken Reform as a unit and is a slap in the face to the so-called grassroots element of the party. I think Andrew here doesn't understand politics and doesn't understand what Reform UK is all about.
Good afternoon everyone. I thought I'd do a piece to camera following the post that I made yesterday. When the news broke that Marco Lunghi, my former general election opponent, had defected from the Tories to join Reform UK as a member on Friday night, I found out in the same manner as everyone else. I had no forewarning, let alone an opportunity to comment on his recruitment.
Okay, first of all, this guy doesn't seem to understand that Reform UK is not a bottom-up organisation, it's a top-down organisation. It's a company. It's a literal company run by 3 shareholders, Nigel Farage being the biggest one. It's not a grassroots organisation. It didn't start out with a lot of members of the public upset with the Conservatives or upset with the Labour Party or upset with politics in general, and they grouped together and they organised. No, it started from Nigel Farage at the top. So the reason you were not informed is because you're not important, because it's not a political party in the normal sense.
I entered into politics because I recognise that the United Kingdom is heading down a perilous path and needs a 180-degree change in political direction. Reform UK were only polling around 4% when I began working the seat of Dudley, and we managed to achieve a result of over 26% in a tight 3-way marginal. During my campaign, my former opponent acted in a manner that I would go as far as to describe as contemptuous towards Reform UK, disparaging people from voting for Reform, and since the election many of his social media comments appeared to blame me and the party for him losing his seat.
Okay, this is normal politics. Once again, if you don't understand politics, you have no business being involved in it. Political parties are in opposition to each other. They will use whatever rhetoric they can to hold on to their seat if they're the incumbent, or to kick out the incumbent if they want to win that seat. Of course, he was going to talk badly about Reform UK in the run-up to the general election because Reform UK was the opposition, was his opponent. He was talking about the Labour Party in a pretty negative way. He was talking about Reform in a pretty negative way. And the Tories said in the run-up to the vote, you know, if you vote for Reform, you're going to split the vote and you're going to help Labour. And that actually happened. Now, whether that's a justification or not is another thing, but that's the reality of the situation. On the right, there were 2 options for people to vote for, the Conservatives or Reform. There used to be only one option, and that benefited the Conservatives. So, of course, if he wanted to hold on to his seat, he was going to discourage people from voting for Reform. And, of course, he's upset that he lost his seat. You know, he had a pretty good salary there, and that's gone. But now he's realised, look, this is a career politician. This is somebody who doesn't really have any morals or any principles. Obviously, he doesn't, because he's joined Reform UK now. He realised, there's a new bandwagon to jump on. These are politicians. Do you not understand that? You're trying to be a politician yourself, and you don't seem to understand that politicians generally are careerists. They care more about having a decent salary, a decent quality of life, an easy life in some cases, and they trick their constituents into voting for them because the constituents think that they actually have some morals or they have some principles or they're actually going to fight their corner.
Also stating that he did not see what good Reform would do with only 5 MPs. Also, if you'd like to search Andrew Southall, The Telegraph, you might find an article of interest. I therefore have to question the motives of former Conservative MPs coming across now that various seats in the UK are now turning turquoise in the latest MRP polling. They
want to further their careers. They understand that there's There's a wave at the moment in the direction of Reform UK. And they're riding that wave. They're careerists. I don't understand why you don't understand that. And Reform UK are willing to take these people on board because they're willing to take pretty much anyone on board. Richard Tice says that they have a vetting process, that they have a standard. No, they don't really have a standard. As long as you're not a convicted criminal, although there, exceptions may be made there. Yeah, these Reform UK, once again, is a top-down organisation. They're willing to take on ex-Tory MPs because it's good for them. They don't care about you at the bottom. They never did and they never will. You're a tool. That's all. You're useful to them. And then as soon as you have served your use, they'll get rid of you.
Something that I posted about being the case in Dudley only last week. Whilst I'm not alleging that anything has been offered to Marco or other defectors, I think Zia and or Nigel owe the grassroots and the membership an answer to the following question.
There is no grassroots. Now, are there people at the bottom who really want reform to win? Yes, of course. Are there people who are willing to knock on doors for free? Of course. To work, to put in extra hours in order to help reform win seats? Of course, yes. There is a certain element of the grassroots, but it's not a grassroots organisation. It's a top-down organisation. It's literally a company. Nigel Farage is the majority shareholder. I really don't understand why people think it's a grassroots organisation. Once again, there may be some people who are willing to put in the effort, dedicate time to support reform, but it's not a grassroots organisation.
Are favourable seats being offered to Tory defectors as a nailed-on promise? We've been told that branches will be able to vote on who their candidates will be in selection meetings. Whilst we are potentially some time away from the next general election, the question applies in both the case of parliamentary and council seats. The Constitution and Rulebook are not quite the finished articles in my opinion, and we need these details to be established. There are many people who are now branch chairs who are close to winning their seats as PPCs in the last general election, and they will be doing all of the donkey work on a grassroots level. I'm sure they will want to know that the selection process will be fair should they want to stand again. The grassroots actually are indeed the engine room of the Reform UK movement, and many of their current projected seats for reform have been campaigned in heavily by those who believed in the movement from the start. My second question is, given that the Tories were absolutely woeful in 14 years of government, with many of their MPs having voted along party lines for much of the legislation that ails us today, or they stayed quiet or even worse, promoted the following things: net zero, the COVID pandemic response in its entirety, the war in Ukraine, activities of the World Economic Forum and adjacent organisations, controlling immigration, the rape gang cover-up, and many more. My question is, are Reform UK scrutinising defectors for these things? And if not, why not? The People's Army is a phrase that should have meaning, not the Tory 2.0 army. I say everything in this video as a staunch supporter and member of Reform UK who wants the best for this country. Thank you.
Okay. Once again, I don't think he understands politics. You see, why don't you, as the members and the grassroots organisation, why don't you vote? Oh no, you can't vote because it's not a political party. See, once again, it's a company. It's not a grassroots organisation. It's not a political party in the normal sense. You're not going to be able to organise the members and say, let's have a vote on whether ex-Tory MPs can become members of Reform UK or candidates in the next... No, you can't vote on that because it's not a political party. Don't you understand that? Don't you understand that it's all a massive scam? It's about convincing people, in some cases the poorest in society, that they should throw their lot in with Reform UK because Reform UK will look after them. The Labour Party won't look after them. The Conservatives won't look after them. No. Nigel will look after them. A guy who's, went to private school, an ex-city trader, the guy who rubs shoulders with billionaires, having a few problems with billionaires at the moment, but maybe that will be smoothed out. This guy is going to look after the poorest in society. This is a guy who cares about the future of Britain. Once again, this is not just me being critical of Reform UK. Reform UK members don't seem to understand that they have no influence over Nigel Farage. They can complain as much as they want. They can put out videos complaining about, the selection process or who's coming into the party, but it doesn't make any difference. Because Nigel Farage, Richard Tyson, those at the top will say, well, we decide how the party goes forward, not you. And we have designed a system in order to ensure that we are in charge and that you have no power over us. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.